Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SPL. Today is Sunday, and we are going to get very quickly underway. We've got a doubleheader coming out from Allegiance. They're going to start off against LG Luminosity Gaming. My name, of course, is Fdot, but I am joined by the classic man himself. It's Krett.
Nice to meet you. My name is Krett. Happy to be. Fine, I don't like you anyway. I'm filling in for JeffHindla today, so gonna have a lot of fun. And luckily, we're casting one of my old teammates, Lassiz.
Yeah, that's very true. Krett has a history as a coach, as a commentator, as
Roommate.
Is pretty much everything when it comes to SPL. And if you're unfamiliar, he and I also do an SPL podcast show type deal. So definitely in the know, knowledgeable, has been around the scene, and he's actually casted with me before. We're the original tag team, so we're happy to be back. But getting into the details and the nitty gritty of everything, like you said, you were not only friends and obviously coworkers on a team, but you were also roommates with Lassiz. Yeah. What can you give us? What kind of insight can you give into the ALG at the moment?
You know, it's hard to say because it's been 4 months since I've lived in their house.
1 week since you looked at me.
That's right. Lassiz is an interesting player. He's dynamic and explosive, but he's also inconsistent because sometimes he sleeps and sometimes he's a killer. I think it's my favorite stat where on the old Dignitas, when Lass was in the jungle, if he got 7 kills, they won.
Exactly. He's always been this catalyst for the team, and that's exactly what ALG needs if they're going to skyrocket up. Right now, sitting at number 7, they'll be taking on Luminosity, the 4th place team. But interestingly enough, 2 wins are all that separate number 4 and number 7. So Allegiance today, with a 2-0 victory over Luminosity, can actually find themselves shared in that 5th position with Denial.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge for them. It's it's actually pretty scary for Luminosity, who recently have been having a little bit of trouble. Andinster and Snoopy not looking as good as maybe we expected.
Yeah.
And, I'm the world's #1 Andinster apologist.
That's the truth.
But he just hasn't, we haven't seen it for the past few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Andy traditionally has never really been a player. Every player I think you can look at some point in the 3 years of professional Smite that most of them have been involved in, and you can point out to a spot where they slump, where they have an issue.
Right.
And Andy historically has had the shortest slumps, right? Well, it's just been a couple of games, and if we take a look at Luminosity, they've had a 2-game losing streak, right? They struggled against Soar, but they were also able to spectacularly perform against Denial. So, is it a slump or just a bad set of games? Is really the question if you're an LG fan.
I think for LG, part of it is they're trying to get ahead of the meta like they do every season.
Right.
And I think sometimes they're misstepping and they're going in the wrong direction. And then they lose and they're like, oh, that didn't work. We did the wrong thing. All right, let's try something else.
And I mean, at this part of the game, I'm going to ask you to tug on your coach name tag real quick. At this stage of the game, right, it's the week before bye week, and which point is the essential halfway, that's allowed during week 1, 2, 3,
Sure.
4, 5, 6, 7. When do you start to get scared?
As a coach, you don't get scared. You always trust in your boys.
Sure.
And I think Andinster, Snoopy, BaRRaCCuDDa, and the like, I think they just got to keep going. They've been in spots like this before. They can pull right out of it. They can, be a top 3 team, head all the way to the finals in DreamHack. They got to believe like their fans believe. And Luminosity need to take this 2-0 if they want to recoup and get back in the top half of the Pentagon of Power.
Exactly. With those 2 wins, we'll see 8 in the win column for Luminosity. It's going to take a lot of trust and belief, but we'll see if they can take on Team Allegiance, the number 7 team, who need some trust and belief themselves, specifically in the mind of one player. MrMakey is going to be new to Allegiance. It was kind of accidentally leaked at one point and then officially mentioned. MrMakey, formerly a solo laner, will actually be taking over the role of Dare to Care's support play.
Sure, and this will actually be his 3rd role played in competitive, I believe. He did also sub in for BaRRaCCuDDa, the famous John Salter's return moment as an ADC. So taking his 3rd role. And Luminosity, I see the Khepri ban.
Yep.
So this tells me one of 2 things. Either one, MrMakey is known for his Khepri play, maybe in ranked or scrims.
Sure.
Or number 2, they're just going to try and ban him out, right? Weakest player, he's the sub, or new starter, whatever. Take him out of the equation.
And we see that a lot when new players or even substitutes come online, where whether or not it's the entire God pool, just the God pool of the role, try to get rid of that. But with the Thor ban, you can see Luminosity more spreading it out. And I think everybody is well aware of Team Allegiance. Whether or not you think they're a top team or a bottom team or somewhere in between, you understand exactly what you said earlier about Lassiz, that he can get 8 kills and 0 deaths against the best teams in the world.
He totally can. Now, this is a starter change and not a sub, correct?
Exactly, yeah. This is
now,
a
here's
full
the thing.
roster change.
In this season so far, subs have been extraordinarily successful.
I mean, just last week.
Roster changes, not so much, though.
That's very true. We've had the series of musical junglers pretty much
Yes.
in North America, right? Mainly with the spotlights on Mask and Ionic and a little bit of Skeleton tossed on the side as well. But we'll see how this roster swap bodes for the rest of the game. And taking a look at the lineup, Allegiance is going to look directly at Oceans and pick up that Apollo, while Luminosity hangs out on the support and jungle side with Athena, Naja.
Naja is such a strong pick. It's something that Enster has wanted to play for a very long time, has brought into the SPL and done quite well with, and it's got fantastic synergy with those mid laners.
Yes.
So look for something explosive out of BaRRaCCuDDa.
That's something that we've seen a lot of this season. Not for it's. I feel like it started with a particular team, maybe with Hungry for More, but teams did it before and after, and really we've seen that 1-2 punch out of the mid jungle combination, crowd control out of the jungle into a giant burst from mid lane.
Sure, and Naja is super good at it because he's got great early pressure. He's great at mid harpies with the ring that just bounces between the two of them, and if he ults, you can get it in the frame before the Aegis, and you can land that damage. Kero from Cringe Crew is famous for that.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you know, the key with Naja is that he can also do some damage himself. Going to be looking towards Isis to both interrupt the wing gust damage and also just try to kill her. So first half of the picks said and done. Let's take a look at our rosters. Apollo, Bellona, and Isis. Team Allegiance missing possibly a jungler, most likely a jungler, and a support, whereas Luminosity still searching for their hunter and their solo lane most likely.
So Team Allegiance, I think, has two options there. Either one, Lassiz takes something more aggressive in the jungle and they go head-to-head. Isis and Zeus are both very strong mid laners. Isis can take control of that matchup. Naja is a very strong jungler, so you would need to see something incredibly early game focused out of Lassiz if they wanted to take mid pressure.
Right.
Otherwise, they can go a little bit more late game and be a little greedy.
And they do have the ability to go late game because of the Isis. She's
and
just
the
so
Apollo.
strong. Right. She's just so strong in the early game that Naja's good early and Zeus isn't. Right? Isis is good early, and you can find a jungler that either, like you said, push that advantage or just leave it alone.
I'd say Zeus isn't good early, but this is the double bounce comp. If you 2v2
That's
them
true.
and it doesn't bounce to creeps, you're dead.
The old pinball.
Instantly.
Oh, he's going to play some pinball of his own.
So the double ring build.
Yeah. Oh, wow. No more Broden and Zeus. It's all about the bounces instead of the rings.
The circles. I mean, Hui ultimate and Zeus ultimate on top of each other can lock down an entire area of a team fight. We've seen this before. Now, I did mention earlier the Naja combo, maybe Poseidon or Janus being the obvious choices. They're not really going to be able to do that. Zeus doesn't have the type of burst you want to kill someone as they're falling. Nemesis in the jungle. We haven't seen her do that well this season.
Right. There's a lot of angry fans right now.
Which, honestly, I think means that she's killing it in scrims, and then you get on the main stage and she just feeds. Isis has the early game pressure to make the Nemesis potentially not lose everything.
Exactly. That's what I was talking about with
maybe,
you don't have
though.
Sure. It's definitely a maybe, and we'll have to see how it works out. But that's exactly what I was mentioning when I said you can go Isis and you have the early game, and you can push that advantage with another early game jungler, like a Fenrir or so. But you also have the luxury of going a late game Nemesis, Kali, or whatever, and you don't have to really play with that early
speaking of
game.
late game, Geb gives up lane pressure, Nemesis gives up jungle pressure, but Geb is fantastic late game, and on the Luminosity roster, there is no counter for Nemesis ult. You can't save that person when they're ulted. They're just going to either have to get out, use all their actives, or they're just going to die.
Quick question as we get into game here. The pick of Vamana on Snoopy with the Nemesis choice. Problem or no?
I think Snoopy, it was last pick. He didn't have that many options. I think he just said, you know what, I'm going to go Vamana.
Yeah, it's honestly, a safe pick at the end of the day.
If Allegiance is Nemesis ulting Snoopy and he's not dying immediately, that's just a Nemesis ult that's not on Zeus or Hui or someone who will get bursted to death.
Fun thing about also something that we didn't note about the ring toss that rarely gets brought up actually is the fact that it strips protections.
Yes.
This ability does so much. Makes you faster, makes them slower, but it strips protections as well, which bodes very well for the tankier characters like Geb, somebody with a Geb shield, Bellona, and of course Lassiz will likely be building tanky later on. But I do find it interesting, the red pot on Nemesis. Normally on these characters that are more item dependent, Nemesis being the hallmark for that, we don't see the red pot. Why the choice here to go aggressive?
I think it's not about going aggressive as much as it is increasing the early pressure to the point where on the repeat buff spawn, you won't necessarily get invaded. If Lass doesn't lose his pot, and they don't mess up horribly, he and Incon should be able to contest a blue buff or a red buff if Luminosity chooses to invade.
So it's just about bringing Nemesis up an extra notch, not to fight. Like the red pot usually brings you above your opponent. This will bring you up to match your opponent, so to speak, eh?
That's right, and make something like that just too risky for Luminosity to attempt. They're trying to get to the 10-minute mark, and that's their first step. Once they're there, we'll talk about whether they're in control or they need to wait for the 20-minute mark.
So we definitely want to keep an eye on Allegiance's composition and see how well they're performing, and then we'll see what moment they choose to really enter the big fray. Taking a look at the mid lane, just as we kind of suspected, Luminosity has decent control over this, but Allegiance will opt to, I think, throw a spirit ball and a slice and dice to try and get the last hit.
Right, and it's a stalemate here, but you can notice that Jeff is going into the jungle. Zeus actually returning into the middle lane.
Love that.
So it looks like ALG will get the left harpies, but they do have to be careful about the ring toss, and last, taking a fair bit of damage. They also have to be careful because they're not winning duo lane. They're getting pushed under tower, so rotations can come out from BaRRa.
I want to point out that small thing because I really liked it out of Luminosity. Zeus stayed in the lane, so he was able to tell Naja, hey, they're not here. They're waiting behind that corner. Allegiance looked like they were being all sneaky, hiding behind, but they certainly wanted. BaRRaCCuDDa knew 100% that ALG were waiting, so Naja can throw the ring for a last hit, waits, and opts to toss that. As we take a look at our first look at the Allegiance new duo lane, or at least half, MrMakey, half HP on the Geb.
Yeah, and this is just expected. Geb is not great in lane. You are going to take damage. You are going to lose. That shield is not going to be present for the taunt, so Ocean's taking a fair bit of damage, but it's turned back onto JeffHindla thanks to the archers, and Mackey's actually rolling in. Last shows up, and that's going to alleviate a little bit of pressure, but since Last has showed himself, now there's a deficit of pressure for ALG in the mid lane.
Was that supposed to be a kill?
No, that was not supposed to be a kill.
Exactly.
That was to relieve pressure.
Nemesis really can't find a kill unless she gets lucky before level 5. That ultimate is really what she's about. I expect to see at least some cooldown, whether it's an early Jotuns or otherwise. I expect to see at least some cooldown on Nemesis because of how powerful that ultimate can be.
Yeah, and you're just going to see Allegiance being very careful about how they lose. They are going to lose in the early game. They're going to lose buffs like these pigs, and they can't really contest it, especially with that triple bounce.
Right.
But they're just being careful not to lose something that they're not supposed to.
That's why
that boar invade was supposed to happen.
Exactly, which is why we didn't see Allegiance go in like contested or ask for a rotation from mid lane, because they're going to have this lane at the moment. So allow Luminosity to take that, and it's about like you said, losing gracefully rather than winning early and then being able to usurp the power a little bit later on. Mid lane pressure is certainly going LG's way as well.
And this is just all about very strong rotations to the mid lane and then to the back harpies, back and forth for ALG. We're talking about them a lot because really Luminosity is just going through the paces of having the stronger mid pressure, having the stronger duo pressure, and it's on how ALG efficiently farms with what they're given. They will lose right harpies on the left-hand side. Mackey is very low. A nice shield will keep him alive for a little bit, but he is going to sacrifice himself and try and waste as much time as possible. If he can wait enough time, he might be able to die solo to the tower.
And that's what he's going to go for. Mackey skirting the tower lane. Ricochet won't hit, and the tower hits. And take a look. Hou-Yi does get an assist for it.
And that assist is actually worth a lot of money because it's an unshared assist. So he's getting maybe 80% of the value, but what he doesn't get is first blood.
500 gold still in the bank. By the way, welcome to the SPL, MrMakey. You have now died to a tower and nobody else. What an excellent way. But no, seriously, like Krett said, that was a as best a move as you could make. And heading towards the Luminosity side, like you said, Luminosity is playing solitaire right now. They're playing Smite as it is and as it should be, right? With their you've got a mid to late game mid laner and an early to mid game jungler. You're being handed very. It's up to ALG. ALG has to play Luminosity's game. Luminosity certainly does not have to play ALG's game.
And Luminosity has already lost their first opportunity. The blue buff and the red buff have both gone to ALG. They weren't able to get a 4-minute invade, which is a big win by way of not losing for ALG.
Taking a look at Mattypocket as well. The lane dominance going the way of Bellona at this point for the most part. Health has evened out a little bit, but the Pickler has really shown a good face this Season 3. I have been mentioning how much he's improved incessantly, and Snoopy, who also new to this role, unfortunately hasn't really stepped up to the same limelight as Mattypocket shy a few games.
Right, and so I think I love that Snoopy is just playing conservatively. He's playing the Vamana, he's trying not to feed, trying not to lose his pigs, which is exactly what he needs to do. The rest of his team can do the majority of the work while he's still learning the role, but he does get a little bit far forward and will be forced to use his dash. Matty able to clean up these creeps, no problem.
Yeah.
But Luminosity, they've still got control of the mid lane. They're actually going to back in duo with 3 people around the mid area, and it's a little bit of a 3v3 in lane. They're going to triple share those back harpies, which is very nice farm, and they're just trying to amass a free lead. So far, only up 300.
Right.
I'd like to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Luminosity have the advantage. Like you said, you're not going to be. You're not going to be afraid to push up in lane because Nemesis isn't going to kill you anytime soon. Now, 10 minutes later, different story. But at 4 or 5 minutes, nobody's really afraid of the big bad Nemesis. Oh, you slowed me a little bit. Well, if I'm Hoyi, I can hit sprint, and if I'm anybody else, I'm just not dying.
Now, what Luminosity does have to be very careful of is if they go too deep, you've got a Geb shield to save someone. And if you are deep, you can get Isis ulted. With a Nemesis ult on top, you're just dead.
And not to mention, Nemesis can provide a little bit of help on her own with her her shield. And there's an early Gold Fury.
And they should be doing this. This is exactly what they should be doing. It's at about 30% health. Mackie is in the area.
That's
going to get Taunter away. Apollo dashes in. Ocean's getting a lot of damage. Allegiance able to take it. Najah takes someone into the air. Isis ult should be able to save their life.
That's
a huge
quadra stun. Mackie looking pretty strong here. And after the rotation, duo lane secures the Gold Fury for Allegiance. And Matty out of nowhere, all the way from the right side of the map, confirms the kill. 1 for 1 in the team fight. But that Gold Fury was branded Luminosity, and Allegiance took it out from underneath him.
Now, Snoopy, he didn't rotate. Matty did get a kill. That's a huge advantage for him. The blue buff was taken away, and Matty should know that. He should be considering going for the enemy blue invade. And with the Zeus ult and the Najah ult down, it is possible. Or he might just back and buy mana pots. It depends on how the team feels.
Couple of different options right now. But as you can see, the Gold Fury for Allegiance was very important because all it did was neutralize the lead that Luminosity had. Or obtained after the fact with the First Blood. Everything's all even one more time, but if Luminosity had taken it, I mean, you were just saying, at this point in the game, Luminosity have the upper hand because of their composition alone. With that Gold Fury, that would have been the step you were looking for.
Well, the biggest thing is that was 1-for-1 trade, but who died? Geb, which is fine. Najah, which is very bad, because now he's behind Lassiz, and Najah should, under no circumstances, be behind Nemesis.
Right. I mean, Najah is the one that fought. You're afraid of Najah at that 5-minute mark when you're not even thinking about Nemesis. So Najah definitely wants to be a little bit more relevant. There's the Nemesis ultimate onto JeffHindla. No follow-up, though.
Right. Just buying some space there. That is a zoning Nemesis ult.
Funny.
First time anyone's ever said that.
I mean, you know, it's the first time anyone's ever said that, but it's so true. Can we take a look? I want to take a look at Nemesis ult because it's kind of a complicated ability. Basically, what Nemesis ult does is it's going to strip protections from your enemy, and look at that. So it does percent damage flat out. Rank 2 right now he's doing 35% damage, which is neither here nor there. It's about the protections. You're stealing 35% of your enemy's protections and slowing them down by 25%. The fact that you get it is irrelevant here because of the zoning ult. You're just making a tanky target very squishy.
Right, and that's saying, Jeff, you can't come closer. You will die, we will punish you. And he says, okay, I'll back off. You've bought some time. And then Nemo, only 20 seconds away. LG doesn't have that much time to make plays. Mid-Harpies are not coming up anytime soon. Maybe they can use that lack of an ult to get some ward control, and you can see some sentries at some key locations on the left-hand side of the map.
Right.
But that's about it. And so we're seeing these teams play a game of inches, which is exactly what ALG wants. On the right-hand side, Snoopy in a bit of trouble.
He'll generally be fine. Clear the path will allow him to get out of jail, as a couple of players from Allegiance have made the rotation. Even Oceans as far right as we've seen him all game ventures to the back Harpies. Which, sure, he's going to pick up the back Harpies on his way, but it also makes the trip, had there been a fight, a little bit shorter.
Yeah, and that's very good, first of all, because you got to carry getting back Harpies. That's always great. And he actually is forced to use Purification there. Step too far forward into a taunt. Didn't want to get hit by the Hoyi ultimate or any other CC, so that's a big window for Luminosity if they can get andinster in position He doesn't have Blink, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But if
Right.
they get him in position, Oceans can very easily die.
With that in mind, I mean, Oceans is on Apollo. The quite literal escape artist of Smite.
True.
A good mez, the moves, and the opportunity to find an ult will get him out of jail. Right there, you see it in action. The dash finds his way out of the Ho-Yi ult. BaRRaCCuDDa does not come up with the kill, but with Oceans very, very low, he's going to be forced back to base. Looking for the ricochet.
Oh, that would have been cute.
Just off the mark. Oceans winds up back home, but BaRRaCCuDDa with a little bit of lane dominance. 2 assists. And in the mid lane, MrMakey going to get hit by a bunch of Zeus damage, and the long-range Spirit Ball off mark, and he's going to take the crit tanky Geb to the sky, and Mackey's still in some trouble. Here comes Oceans, though, knock up with the speed boost, and the Hunter looking for the basics. Andy able to find the support, and the basics just aren't finding the last tick of damage they need. Oceans gets no kill, but Snoopy certainly does. 4 kills in total for the team Luminosity. And despite the aggression from Mattypocket, unable to find an answer back is Allegiance.
And honestly, Allegiance missed 2 key abilities. The Isis ult did not do enough.
Right.
Frankly, I don't think it really did very much at all. And the Geb ult stunned 1 person. Mackie, I think he just panic ulted and said, I need to use this to get out. He didn't set up for his Paulo. He didn't wait a little bit. That could have gone so much better for ALG, and it's a huge advantage to Luminosity, which they can now use to get ahead. As a result, Allegiance has to wait another 10 minutes.
Especially with Mackie being the target of Najah. You know, Najah's crits, Najah's all about the crits, especially the ultimate, and they just don't do as much damage to Geb. So for Geb to take the Najah ult after Cataclysm's down, that's fantastic. The Geb's not able to shield his teammate, which is probably what Andy was thinking, going for the Geb with the ultimate, take the shield out of the gameplay. But with Najah and Geb out of the picture, Allegiance have to say, all right, Najah can't delete one of us. We need to find the return kill. And the Allegiance just wasn't able to find the positioning.
There was also kind of a... I'm not happy with when they chose to fight because their Hunter had just been sent back to base.
Right.
So, granted, Ho-Yi ult was down, and that's a huge advantage, but at the same time, Oceans didn't necessarily have the quickest path of travel to that fight, which is sort of what you rely on Apollo. You rely on him and the other Hunter being next to each other, and Apollo just gets to the fight faster.
Right. So unfortunately, not going to pan out for Allegiance. But after that fight, we see Luminosity up by about 1,500. So, yeah, about 1,500, give or take. So Luminosity with their first foot in the right direction. But as we said very early on in the broadcast, Team Allegiance not looking to win at 12 minutes, more looking to win at 22, or at least get their lead at that point. Gold Fury has respawned since the last time we saw it. Allegiance was able to sneak that one away from LG, so we'll see where the teams opt to fight next, if it's around that objective or otherwise.
Yeah, and ALG still, or Allegiance still playing the waiting game. Matty is rotating a little bit over towards mid. That's likely where the fights are going to be for the next few minutes, around mid lane, around the mid harpies. So I like that Matty is taking proactive steps to move forward and get close to his team. Blue buff is about to spawn, and they will take that right away. Don't want to get that invaded.
Yeah, Snoopy invaded that last time around, so he'll even show his face here, but Allegiance just a little bit too fast. Love the timing on Snoopy, being able to take a look at that timer and make sure he's there at the moment, but Allegiance just a little quicker. Matty actually has the lead, or Snoopy actually has the lead in this short lane, 1-0-2 on the Vamana. But take a look at that build, Krett. Why don't you break that down for me? A little bit of magical power and physical power by way of rank 1 items.
Yeah, I think he just felt like he was going to take a little bit too much damage from maybe the Isis threat as well as the Nemesis threat. But Gold Fury being pulled, LG already have it to about 70%.
Dual lane, no. MrMakey's going to show up. He'll roll out into it, and Oceans will follow suit. There's the ultimate out of Zeus, and the team pulls off of the Gold Fury, and they're all just looking at Geb. Well, they're looking at him for a moment. The shield is big, but it's just not enough. BaRRaCCuDDa secures the 5th kill for Allegiance. Blinking in his andinster, he's going to get the hit on the ultimate down from the sky, and it's followed up one more time by the BaRRaCCuDDa. Double kill for your mid laner. Athena and Ho-Yi still giving chase. Isis stuck in some trouble. Good damage from Lassiz, but he's caught out as well. Detonate, not enough to take down the jungler, but Matty, one more time, out of nowhere, punishes Luminosity from the side.
Oh no! Oh, Matty just got Incon killed with the chain lightning. That's so unfortunate. He's kicking himself.
That's really, really rough. That death certainly didn't have to happen. And with that death or otherwise, Luminosity going to pick up the Gold Fury. Unless anybody... Nope, Lightning doesn't strike twice here in this early game. Luminosity wind up 3K up after that exchange.
And honestly, that team fight comes down to one thing for me.
What's that?
Mackie panics. He goes in. He cataclysms like 4 people. He wastes a lot of time.
Mhm.
And no one from Allegiance is there to help him because he's just too far forward.
Exactly. That's what I'm seeing. I like I like the aggressive decision making of Mackie, right? Okay, we can get a fight here, we can get a fight here. But if your teammates aren't around you,
It's useless.
there is no fight there.
Yeah.
It's just you going in 1-on-5. So Mackie, like you said, maybe it's adrenaline, maybe he's really excited, or maybe he's, a little bit anxious, but I definitely think I see a little bit of emotion impacting the way of Mackie's play right now.
Right, and you're really just not seeing enough out of Mackie, and I want to say also Incon in the mid lane hasn't been hitting those spirit balls. We haven't seen a good Ice Assault, and as we know from watching Sio Sio for 3 years, those can completely win the game by themselves.
Yeah.
There's still the potential for that to happen, but rapidly this game is slipping out of control for Allegiance. They cannot lose anything else in the next 10 minutes, or they're going to have to take it to 40.
Yeah, the situation definitely a little bit more dire than it once was. And Mackie, are there any positives? Do we see the potential for the dual lane play there, or have we just seen negatives for Mr. Mackie so far?
I think he's got decent shield timing, but
Okay.
I also haven't seen the... I saw Polar Bear Mike once shield someone out of a Janus portal,
Okay.
and
Wow.
I didn't even know that was possible. So maybe we'll see something like
Sure.
that. Right, and, there's... By no means is it Mackie's,
Look at Oceans.
the
Look at
wrong
Oceans.
decision.
The police come to the left side, and Oceans is well aware, takes to the sky almost immediately. But with him vacating the duo lane, this looks like it could be a tower very early on for Luminosity, and it will be. Tier 1 tower on the left side goes down to the likes of LG. They're up 7-2 in the kills and quite a lot in the gold, about 4,000 to be exact, just 16.5 in.
That's right, and now they're going to control... They've gotten a huge boost of their map control on the left-hand side of the map with that tower being down. Now up in the air, we see andinster able to find a kill on Incon. Lassiz is very low. He might not die here as Snoopy is forced to leave, but the tower's going to go down.
I mean, you say he's forced to leave, but is he in some trouble? Forced into the big baby, and now looping around the backside will be the solo laner for Luminosity, while the rest of the squad comes around the front, taunt onto Mattypocket, who'll take it to the face and jump right on in. Stuns out Incon, but on the backside, Ocean's very low thanks to Snoopy. The ultimate has run out, so he'll find safety in the jungle. But Luminosity try to siege this tower by way of a pincer maneuver, but just unable to find it.
Yeah, they weren't able to find enough there, but they still have the Zeus ultimate. So, at the very least, there is no threat to them as a team. Allegiance cannot engage. The Zeus ultimate will kill them if they take an even fight.
Yeah. That was very calculated. Luminosity knew what they were spending in the whole yield,
Yes.
and more specifically what they weren't with the Zeus ult. So it's no accident that BaRRaCCuDDa still has that ultimate up.
Now, granted, Luminosity's in... They've taken all of the free towers. They've taken all of the outer towers. Now they've got to look for inner, and that might be a little bit difficult. So they need to balance taking Gold Furies, which is a very easy and free objective for them to take,
Sure.
against sieging an inner tower, which becomes a little bit more difficult. Now they've got great poke from Zeus, and maybe Hui if he hits a ricochet, but that's pretty much all the poke they have. They're engaged from Jeff. He doesn't have blink, so it's not the god tier Athena engage, but it's still pretty good if he dashes in. But if he dashes in and gets nem ulted, he's in a lot of trouble.
Sure.
So they have to be very careful with how they approach these tier 2 towers, and it's going to come down to jungle control, Gold Fury control, and rotations to create the opportunity where they can break the first tower.
I'm hearing all situations that Zeus and Hoyield are fantastic on.
Yes.
Area denial, area denial, area denial. And hey, guess what we've drafted in our composition? Area denial, area denial. And you can call Big Baby by himself area denial. I think that's good enough. So if you take a look at the whole team as a unit, for the correct steps that Luminosity have to win this game, they are certainly set up for victory with their composition. But Allegiance, like we said earlier, they are not expected to be ahead early game. They're expected to be ahead a little bit later on. When is too late? What time on the clock?
It might be now, as there's about a 6,000 gold lead, which, we've always said for...
Plus 1,500 on that inner tower, that's going to be a lot more, almost 8,000.
And that was just Allegiance not being in the right spot.
Yeah.
They just weren't there to defend it. They didn't have the ward coverage to be in the right place, and that might be, I think that's the first nail entering the coffin.
Okay.
Right? They're in the coffin. the top is on, and then Luminosity's just nailing it in. They're going to be very careful as they go around. They take every gold fury, every tower, until they get 18,000 gold, and they finally wait for the fire creeps to end the game.
And that's what I liked about that tier 2 tower that came, because it was just happenstance that Luminosity got it. They weren't looking for a tier 2 tower. They weren't looking for MrMakey. It just so happened that they were in the right spot at the right time, and the Geb just ultimately falls to the hand of LG. Same thing with the tier 2 tower over here. The Gold Fury was coming up momentarily, so Luminosity grouped up on the left side of the map, and then just went, hey, nobody's at that tier 2.
Well, and
Let's
not
just take
only did Makey just die for a free kill, he used his ultimate, his heavenly agility, and his shell, trying to get out of a 1v5, which means not only is it a 5v4 right now, and they can probably just take this tower when Snoopy shows up, but they can't even team fight because they don't have half of their tools. Now, Jeff is very low, as you said, but it's a nice shell. Matty goes in. He can't secure the kill, and now Matty will die.
Yeah, the stun on the mark, but Snoopy immunes it with the ultimate. Meanwhile, andinster goes to the clouds, and he'll come right on down. Finally, a nice Isis ult to help Lassiz out, but is it too little too late as BaRRaCCuDDa takes out Incon himself? It looks so. Taunt into Snoopy. Snoopy winds up with a kill. Almost everybody on the side of LG gets a kill in that engagement. More appropriately, the tier 2 tower goes down, and Luminosity looking at a Firebird. No opposition. This is the first Phoenix of the game, folks.
Yeah, 3 for 0, plus Phoenix, plus tower. How are their health? They can probably do Fire Giant as well here. Najah is a strong enough jungler with his fire. That's the correct decision. Any more, and I think ALG will tilt. So I love that they went for the surrender. Look for game 2. Don't get upset.
Exactly. I mean, they tried something different with the Nemesis. Did it work? No, it didn't work, but the problem...
I don't think it was the Nemesis' fault.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like it didn't work, but the Nemesis was generally fine. I think a lot of eyes can be looked at team play overall, and perhaps if you want to look at somebody specifically, Makey maybe.
Right, maybe it was the playstyle of the Nemesis that was the problem. But either way, first blood fight, Makey he got caught out of position for his first 2 deaths and had a lot of trouble. Now, this technically was not first blood, but he was able to make it to the tower and die to give BaRRaCCuDDa an unshared assist, which is a lot of gold and an advantage, and it sets up BaRRaCCuDDa to have a strong position for the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and that death to the tower, that's best case scenario, but that's sort of like best case scenario.
It's better than just dying.
Yeah, I mean, it's like saying I'm wearing a white shirt in the rain, and at least I'm not naked, right? Like,
yeah,
it's just not a good situation. Why don't we take a look at one of the bigger players here? Bringing the thunder, bringing the pain. It's BaRRaCCuDDa in the middle lane. Yeah, you like that one?
No.
I didn't think
no,
so.
I don't. BaRRaCCuDDa here in this fight, he's going to position back very carefully, gets a lot of damage off. That Zeus ult zones off Lass and Incon, so they cannot get into the fight. The ult from Isis is not able to do anything, and Makey's not even able to get back into it as andinster's able to pick up that kill. And now Snoopy, he goes in to clean up.
You know, the Zeus ultimate there before this play zoned them out, but it also tricked Isis into thinking that's where Luminosity was going to fight. They were going to fight inside the Zeus ult, so that throws off the Isis ult. So BaRRaCCuDDa is here doing direct damage, able to take out Makey. He's doing zoning duty with the ultimate, and he's also playing trickery on the enemy team at the same time. BaRRaCCuDDa doing multiple different roles from the mid lane, when at the end of the day, 7-0-4 for a very vulnerable god.
Did you see that meditation here? Oh, and this is where Matty is going to accidentally kill Incon. All right, so there's the shield, bounces it, just hoping for the best, and he finds the best as Incon goes down to a death.
I love the turnaround, like, yo, I killed him? I didn't even know.
That's right.
Here's BaRRaCCuDDa again, combining the circles. The Zeus ult and the Ho yield create an entire lane's worth of distributed damage that you just can't fight on. This tier 2 tower had no defense, and it really was just down to the AoE of those 2 characters.
Now, in that highlight reel, did we even see BaRRaCCuDDa take a single hit of damage?
No.
His team was able to zone so aggressively for him, so maybe the Nemesis was part of the problem in that they weren't able to do what they needed to do to pressure Zeus.
So, I mean, yes and no, because if you're playing a Thor, right? Let's just say it's a Thor instead. BaRRaCCuDDa is in the back line, 1, being zoned by his teammates, and 2, fantastic positioning by himself. Meanwhile, Luminosity are being aggressive. I don't care if you're a Nemesis, a Ratatasker, or a Thor. In that situation, you're peeling for Isis.
Right.
You're not diving the back line. So it doesn't matter. It wasn't the Nemesis pick. I don't think so. I think it was ALG as a whole. Because even if you're a more appropriate jungler like Thor, you're not fighting BaRRaCCuDDa. You're helping Incon.
Well, LG has very clearly shown that they want to play backline with the Hou-Yi on BaRRa, backline with the Zeus on BaRRaCCuDDa, and play super defensively with those characters and just do a lot of damage.
And it works.
So what's ALG going to do in response? Let's take a look.